Hello, Amplify You family. Michelle Abraham, your host here. Today, I'm bringing you a behind the mic interview and also an expert interview all tied into one, because our awesome guest today, not only is he a podcaster, he's an author, a coach, he's a speaker, he does it all. He is amazing, and he's really well known for the 100-mile mindset. So that's the name of his book. And also he's just been doing so many cool things. He started off in the military and learning all sorts of discipline and mindset things. I think probably it started off there. We'll dive into that a little bit more. But then he's moved into coaching people on business and life. And he really has a purpose of being here to really make sure people are living the best life that they can. And we all know that kind of starts with the mindset. So welcome to our guest today, Nate Bailey. Thank you for being here with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Michelle. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Well, I'm excited to dive into a bunch of different things. So first, let's touch on your little bit of the behind the mic situation. So you are also a podcaster. So tell us a little bit about your podcast and where we can find out more about it.
Yeah, you bet. So my podcast is called Championship Leadership, and I've been doing it for since July of 2018. So it's been a little bit now, and I enjoy it because it's an interview style podcast. I bring on a lot of different leaders, championship leaders from all across the world, as well as just all across all kinds of different industries, right? You know, we have professional athletes, Super Bowl champions, to special operators like Navy SEALs and Green Berets, to just any other industry that you can think of, podcasters, and I just truly love to connect with people and hear their story and hear how hear how they've learned from their failures and how that's all led to the success that they have, especially as a leader, right? Because championship leadership. So it's been awesome. It's been an incredible journey. Continue to learn, and it's crazy. I don't really keep track of my episodes all that often until I maybe look and see as they get posted, and we're well over 100 episodes now. And so it's been awesome.
Well, that's amazing. And we were talking just before I press record a little bit about pod fade, and that's over 100 episodes is a commitment, and it's a consistency kind of thing. And we're going to talk about that in a minute about mindset, but I wanted to bring that up because where did you learn about leadership skills, and what made you want to do a podcast about leadership? Because I think that's a big enough topic that you probably could talk about that for a long time, but what made you want to be so passionate about it that was the topic of your show?
Yeah, when I first started really digging into personal development, shortly outside of college, I wasn't a big reader. I graduated. I had a degree in physical education, and I was struggling to find a job inside of a school system somewhere. Started reading a lot of books, and some of the first ones that I really got into were John Maxwell's books, and he's kind of known as the godfather in the leadership space. And so I just loved his content. I couldn't get enough of it. But also, as I find myself as a coach now, and I look back on my life, whether it was in athletics, being a captain of the different teams that I was part of, or being an officer inside of the military and being a platoon leader, to owning multiple businesses and wanting to kind of be my boss and the leader inside of my organizations, to being in industry, like association leadership positions inside of the different industry associations, and coaching high school and college athletics. Like I see myself always gravitating towards wanting to be a leader and lead and impact other people. And now, of course, as a coach, I get to do that on a daily basis. And so I think it's always kind of been something near and dear to my heart, where I just love the topic of leadership and how we can continue to grow as leaders. And also how, and then the podcast, of course, is just a way for me to talk to some really awesome and interesting people that are also incredible leaders, and just learn from their stories and their experiences as well.
Yeah, I love that. Have you been able to, a lot of people are using their podcast for either like a way to network and build a bigger network of people that they know in the same base that they're working in, or they're getting clients out of it, or they're looking for people to refer clients to you. What aspect of that has been really successful for you with your podcast?
It has definitely increased my network for sure. You know, I get to call some people friends of mine now through really through the podcast that that some of these folks, I had read their books like 10, 12 years ago and never thought I would ever have the chance to speak with them. And ultimately down the road here, they're on my podcast. And now like I can send them a message, I can send them an email and they'll respond. I can ask them to come inside of a live championship leadership Facebook group that I have to do a short interview, and they're happy to come in. So that's definitely been an incredible part of that. And through that, you kind of get access to their network as well. And so I've definitely seen that happen. And that's been a very powerful piece of it. And then of course, I think you know, through a podcast, it's just an opportunity, a platform for others to look to you as this celebrity expert authority in the space that you're talking about. Right. So obviously, and then, you know, through the guests, I'm able to access their audiences as well. Because when they're sharing out the episodes that we do, now I'm in front of more and more people that way as well.
And do you monetize your podcast at all, or is it just sort of for fun kind of right now?
I would say currently I have, you know, I've definitely had revenue come through my podcast, but it's been, I would say, much more indirectly, right? I don't have any sponsorships or anything like that. Really haven't generated much for affiliate income or even focused on that yet, but that's definitely something that I do want to put in place here in the next 12 months as I move forward.
Yeah, I find that's really common with the type of podcast that we work with too, is like they're all entrepreneurs who don't necessarily want to bring on ad revenue or sponsorship revenue. It's more so like bringing people back into your own space, back to your podcast or back to your Facebook group, back to your business, back to your own books and programs and services and stuff like that too. I think that's more seems to be the common theme with our entrepreneurs. And we're more in it for our own programs and services rather than an ad for someone else's.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I think that's great. And so we're all about building community too, right? So you're building a community. Do you build a community from your podcast? So you mentioned you got a Facebook group. Is that directly for listeners from your podcast, or is that for clients that are working with you as a coach?
You know, I really just created that here not that long ago. And really, I think I kind of created it more so as the coronavirus really and the lockdown and the shutdown came and all the uncertainty and it just seemed like a great theme. Like we now more than ever, we need more leaders to step up. But what it's really turned into is just this great platform for business owners and entrepreneurs that want to become better leaders to come into and have a place where we can congregate and learn from each other. And then it's also allowed me to leverage the connections that I've had from people that have been on my podcast to now come into the group as well and create a ton of value. And so yes, to answer your question indirectly, I think it started as one thing and it's really kind of morphed into something else. And I can definitely see it also being something that I will start to push inside of my podcast as well. Hey, you know, join us inside of this group and get a bunch of free content and free value and just continue to be able to impact their lives. And then ultimately, yes, to come into my world for the services that I can provide to them as a coach as well.
So for the services that you you do mostly one-on-one coaching, or do you do corporation coaching, or what's the kind of things that you do in your business?
Yeah, we do a little bit of both, really. We definitely work with some companies, do some corporate trainings. We'll do, I have an event called Championship Leadership 24 Hours. So it's a 24-hour physical experience, but the focus and the intent is to create leaders. So everyone, like, it's a huge leadership experience. And we use the physical part of it to kind of wear them down and to put some stress and some pressure on them and give them leadership opportunities throughout the experience so that they can come out of it like truly as better leaders. And so I have that. And then also, we'll work, you know, classroom style or seminar style with corporations as well. And then also have a coaching program one-on-one basis as well if someone just wants that one-on-one attention.
Awesome. Yeah, I love the idea of like a physical event that's like really an experience for them, right? Because
Yeah.
what better way to
Yeah.
learn something than having an experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I bet they come out of there like really empowered. That's really cool. I love that. So now let's talk about your book for a second and some of the things, some of the tools that you write about in your book. Your book is called The 100-Mile Mindset. Is that right?
Yeah. The 100-mile mindset. Yes.
Yeah, the 100-Mile Mindset, and you can find that at 100milemindset.com for anyone who wants to pick up Nate's book. I think looks really cool. I'm looking forward to reading it. I see you have an audio version of it too. That's awesome for us
Yeah.
podcasters that do
Yeah,
everything by
absolutely.
audio.
Yeah.
I think that's really great as well. And so tell us a little bit about the book and what's kind of like the theme in the book.
Yeah, you bet. So when this book came about, I wanted to, it started on this journey to see if I could run 100 miles, and it took me 3 attempts to do it. I was successful. And so as I went through that experience, that journey, really, it was over about 6-month time period from deciding I was going to do it to finally finishing and running 100 miles successfully
Wow.
at one time. And so it was just me documenting all the lessons that I learned
Mm-hmm.
through that experience, all of the people that I had the opportunity to meet, and the different places that I got to visit, the mindset required to take on something like that and be
Mm-hmm.
successful. And it was just a great microcosm of really, what we all face in life. It very rarely works out the way we had planned it, and usually looks much different. But if you're committed to the outcome, you can make it happen, and you can learn from the things along the way that happen to help you to be successful eventually. So that's really how the book came about, and it was just me, all of the different lessons that I extracted from that experience, that I then now am able to apply into my life in all areas.
That's really great. I love that. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about on this podcast was like, so for all of our podcasters that are sitting at home or they're thinking about starting a podcast, they're a little bit worried about like the commitment in podcasting.
Yeah,
It is a bit of a commitment, like for you, a weekly basis to kind of out content.
yeah.
What can you offer as a suggestion for people who are thinking about podcasting or are podcasting but are kind of getting burned out of it? What's some ways that we can keep ourselves from that pod fade going on?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. First and foremost, just be really clear on why it is that you want the podcast and why you're getting ready to do it, and what your expectations might be. Like, we talked a little bit about, whether or not I'm generating revenue or money from the podcast, and I would say there's a large percentage of us that don't, and so not, it's not a great idea if you're coming into it with that so focused. Not that you can't make that happen, but have a real clear idea of why it's important for you to have the podcast, and then come into that, and to be committed. I would say start small. When I started Championship Leadership, I was doing one a week, and I had a little bit of pod fade, to be honest. In the beginning, I wasn't super consistent. I was doing one a week mostly, but there was a time where maybe I didn't have an episode for like a month. And then, to be honest, I went to a 2-day mastermind, and there was a lot of folks there that had been committed to their podcasting and had been doing it for a long time. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to get serious about this, and I'm going to be consistent. And so I came back, and really since then, that was about 12 months ago, to be honest. I, I got consistent. I was doing one a week. And then I got to the point where I really got serious about it and really started reaching out to a lot of different people to bring on as guests and to become guests on other people's podcasts. And I started just banking up all of these episodes, and I was like, oh man. So then I upped it to 3 a week, and I've been doing that pretty consistently for probably 6 or 7 months now. And it has been fun, and it's been incredible. But yeah, I just don't bite off more than you can chew in the beginning, because it's easy to not see the fruits that maybe you think that you should have. Maybe you don't see the downloads if you're worried about that. I would say don't worry about any of that, and just focus on putting out good content, and being super consistent. I think those are probably two of the biggest things that you can do as a podcaster. And if you do that, um, the downloads and everything else will come over time, but be committed to it. Like, be reasonable about what the results will be. It's just like anything, you don't start playing the piano week one and become Mozart after a year, right? Like, I mean, it takes time, and the podcast is no different. And so I would just, try and be realistic with that, just like you would anything else in life.
Yeah, and I like the idea of it. It's like a long-term game. It's not a short-term
Yeah.
sprint, right? You're looking at that long marathon. And I think, did you see a notice in like your downloads when you went from like one episode a week to 3 episodes a week, that increase in consistency? Have you noticed an increase in your downloads too?
Yeah, I have. There's a few things that I think played into it, but yeah, one of them was definitely the consistency of 3 times a week. Another was, really reaching out and being more consistent in like getting reviews. I mean, it takes work, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not as simple as just putting out an episode and then all of it happens, right? You have to be intentional around a lot of different things inside of it. And a big part of that is reaching out to people, asking them to review your show and to subscribe. And when they do that, then the downloads start to go up as well, and it gets in front of more people, and slowly over time those numbers will increase. And so, but yes, to answer your question, definitely did see a pretty significant increase once I made that shift from 1 to 3.
Yeah, and that's just that commitment again. I know I've done the pod faith thing a little bit too. And
Yeah.
like, you get back onto it, you're like, okay, no, like I'm committed to this because, a lot of our clients get concerned with like the download numbers and like, oh, I only had 100 downloads this week. And it's like, hey, wake up. If you had 100 people standing in your living room in front of you and you're speaking, you'd be damn thrilled. Like,
Yeah,
let's
right.
get
I
real
love
about
that.
this, right?
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
if you are impacting one person out of all those 100 people, great, you're doing your job, right? Like, so
Yeah.
I think keeping in mind that not only that it's not about us really as the host, we're about spreading the message that's coming from us. Sometimes it's coming through us, and sometimes we really need to take that pressure off ourselves. If we just show up and share the message, then things will start to happen, right? And
Yeah.
I want to kind of talk about complacency for a minute, because I think that's something that is like, it's something that comes up in our society, not just
Yeah.
about podcasting, but like life in general. Like, there's some people that are like the super achievers that will go out and run 100 miles, and you had to want to do that, and then you
Yeah.
had to then be committed to doing it, and then you had to practice over and over and over. So I see complacency happening quite a bit all over society and lots of different things. So how can we move people from being complacent to like wanting to achieve more and having a growth mindset?
Yeah. They say complacency kills, right?
Mm-hmm.
Complacency can turn into regret later on in life too, right? If you're complacent and you're just kind of settling, you're not growing for whatever reason, you're not pushing yourself, you're not constantly expanding. When you get later in life, one of the only things that one of our most precious assets is definitely time. And if you continue to just settle, like, you will look back at some point in life with regret, because you know that you can't get that time back. So I think that's a big one, is just to realize how precious life is and that there are no guarantees. And I think those are definitely some lessons that I've learned along the way inside of running 100 miles. And just know that, like, because I ran 100 miles doesn't mean anyone else needs to. It definitely didn't start at 100 miles for me. I remember just not that long ago where it was like running 2 miles was a big thing for me. And so first and foremost, like the 100-mile mindset, you can take that and apply it to whatever it is in your life. And you just start from where you are at. And I think if you can get into a place of just realizing, hey, we do only get one shot here. Unfortunately, I've had some experiences where, where I have been reminded in my life that life is short and there are no guarantees. And so I try to keep that front of mind. And it does drive me. Also, find whatever it is that will drive you, like have that holy cause is what we call it, that will drive you. Because many days you don't want to run, you don't want to do the work, you don't want to record the podcast. So I can't name the number of times I've been like, oh, I forgot I got this episode booked. And you're like, man, I don't really want to, or for whatever reason, right? You just, again, it's kind of a little bit of complacency, but then you get into it, you get into action,
Mm-hmm.
like you get on the episode and you're like, oh, that was awesome. I'm so glad I did that. Or, oh
Mm.
man, I just went and did that run. It wasn't nearly as bad as I thought. Like I got to go run 10 miles today right after this. And I kind of have those thoughts right now, like, I don't
Yeah.
really want to.
What do
Or
they
you
say?
starting to want to,
You never regret, you never regret the workout that you did. It's always the
yeah,
ones you
absolutely.
didn't do,
Never,
right?
never.
You're always glad you did the
You're always
workout.
so
So yeah.
glad that you did it. So if you can
Yeah.
remember that,
Mm-hmm.
just remember that. The next time you're like, oh, I don't want to. Like, oh, but remember the last time I did work out and how good it felt. So
Yeah.
it's staying in motion is the biggest thing that will keep you out
Mm-hmm.
of complacency. Complacency seeks in and really takes a hold when you aren't moving. If
Right.
you're in action, action will kill that complacency fast.
Right. And that's even one of the things we say when people are starting up their podcasts too. Like people get frozen with the imperfection, with perfectionism and all sorts of things. And it's like then
Yes.
the fear, right? But if you just keep in action, those will surface, but then they'll fade away and you just keep moving closer to your goal. I think that's really, really great. And so what are some ways that you keep motivated to your goals? Love to hear what you do.
Yeah. That's a good question. I always, well, one big thing does go back to like the why that drives me.
Mm-hmm.
And, I have kids. I have three young children, 12, 10, and 7. And, I want to be that example for them of what it looks like to live life and to have goals and outcomes and continue to push and to grow and to live
Mm-hmm.
the life that I would love to see them model and live as well. Cause I know if I'm not that example that, someone else will be. And if I leave that up to chance, there's a good chance that I won't be happy with whoever that is. Right. So I have the opportunity to be that example for my kids. And it scares me with the thought that if I'm not, who will be? So that's a big one for me. And also, don't get caught up in the cover art or the perfect title or the perfect equipment. Like
Mm-hmm.
start from where you are at. Like I have this nice mic here if you're watching this
Mm-hmm.
on video, but I just got this. I was using a Blue Yeti forever. And
Yeah.
a Blue Yeti isn't a bad mic.
I still
Yeah,
got the Blue
there it is.
Yeti.
Yeah, I used it forever and it was all right. But you get to a certain point and you're like, all right, I'm ready to take the next
Yeah,
step. I've changed my
exactly.
cover art. I've changed my intro and my outro. Like
Hmm.
I continue to just
Continually
change things over
upgrading,
time.
right? Continually upgrading over time
Yeah.
is a good thing,
Yeah.
I
It's
think. Yeah, in
same
life
thing in
and
every,
business and like
yeah, in all areas.
podcasting, yeah, everything. I love what you said about the being the example for your kids of like actually like seeing you set a goal and then work towards that goal and accomplish it. That was something I was just thinking about. I'm like, yeah, like I haven't really done that for my kids a lot. They're 7 and 4, so they're pretty young still. But
Mm-hmm.
it's something that I've been thinking about. Like, they see me do that in business, but now it's like, they saw us do that with a goal that we had to move out of our house and move to a remote location, which we did. But like, now it's time to show them like, how do you prepare for a 10K run, or like, how do
Yeah.
you do, what's some other goals that we can do that they can see you set that goal, set the intention, and then work towards it every single day, which is really neat. So that was a great reminder for me. And my background was in PE too, so like
Was
physical
it?
education actually is in outdoor recreation, so it was the more
Okay.
the kayaking and the hiking stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that. But now turn more, personal growth kind of stuff. And yeah, it's just I think using the tools we have, especially the outdoors, to really show that we can like set some goals and accomplish some fun things, and keep emotion and keep that mindset. I think you're right, stops you from becoming complacent, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Are there
Yeah.
some like daily things that you do? Like, do you do any meditation, or do you do any, like, you do a day, you say you're going for a daily run. Do you do a run every day and that keeps you motivated? What are some other things that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I really have like what I would call some non-negotiables, just some
Mm.
things that I want to make sure that I do every day that will give me a little bit of momentum heading into doing the really big and important things in my life.
Mm.
So yeah, absolutely. I always make sure that I work out. I don't necessarily always run, although right now as I'm training for a long run again, I run almost every day, just
Mm-hmm.
about every day, probably 6 days a week. And with, cause it is important to give your body some rest and to
Mm-hmm.
recover. So I always make sure that I get some kind of movement or workout in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always, yes, a daily meditation for me is critical. I always make sure that I have my food planned out so that otherwise, if you're not intentional, if you leave it up
Mm-hmm.
to chance, then there's a good chance that I'm not going to eat very well if I don't have it
Yeah.
planned. So I always have that plan. I always make sure that I do some kind of a study, and I don't study for time. I just study for like content, right? So I just want to learn something new every day, and then I'll
Mm-hmm.
take that and I'll teach it. The platform podcasting is an awesome opportunity for me to take things that I've learned
Yeah.
and to teach, just like what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And those are the big ones that, and then I always make sure that I invest into like my family or a relationship that's important to me. So I'm always making sure that I reach out to at least one person via
Mm.
text or a phone call and just tell them, hey, I'm thinking about them.
Yeah, those are great non-negotiables. I like that. Love hearing what everyone's daily routines are,
Yeah.
daily things are. I think that's so cool. And especially now that we have sometimes people have a little bit more time on their hands than normal. Like I think
Yeah.
it's good to really, when we can't see people in person, to reach out to them over the phone or FaceTime or whatever that is. I think it's great to hear from people, right? And keep
Mm-hmm.
connected. So how, when you're training for one of these goals, how do you overcome maybe the fear or the doubt that pops into your mind every once in a while, or all the time for some people?
Yeah. And that happens all of the time. Some great ways is, like I have a coach, and so
Hmm.
it's good to have some accountability. Hey, like here's the plan. How's it going? Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? So there's somebody outside of myself that's kind of helping to hold me accountable.
Accountability.
Again, it's a common theme, but we keep talking about. It's crucial to have a holy cause or this deep
Hmm.
rooted why.
The why,
Why are
yeah.
you doing why are you doing it? So that you can, when you don't feel like it, you can just remind yourself of why it's important. And again, for me, it's my kids, and all I have to think about them is, because they don't, they, they listen more to what you do than what you
Mm,
say. Right. And so they're always watching us. And it's just a great reminder, man, my kids are watching me, and am I doing am I being the example that I want them to be or not? And so that's a big one. And then, um, you know, we're, you're always going to have thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and just remember that a thought is a thought, and it's not real. And so if you have those, the easiest way to get rid of those is to get into action. It would be like, hey, if you said you were going to run today and
mhm,
you got these thoughts and emotions that are like, oh, don't do it, you can do it tomorrow. Like, the sooner you get up and just go, the
mhm.
like, it's kind of like when you walk to the kitchen and you're like, oh, I want to eat something. You don't really want to eat something. You're not really hungry. It's just kind of the habit of, hey, I'm in the kitchen, there's food here, I should eat. Well, if you just remove yourself from that, maybe you go drink a glass of water, maybe you go for a walk, maybe you just go into a different room.
Yeah.
Like, all of a sudden you realize that, I guess I wasn't really hungry. I was just more just out of habit or bored. Right. So
Yeah. And for those people that are just newly working from home, like that is one of the habits that you need to get away
it's a
from.
huge one for all of
Yeah.
us right now. Right. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
we're all
But my
experiencing
kids are
that.
eating out of like boredom. Like they're eating 12
Yeah.
times a day. I'm like, what do you know? Like, no more. We don't have 6 breakfasts and 3
You're
lunches.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just they're at the kitchen all the time. So, yeah, that's definitely a good point for sure. Love that one. And I love just what you said. Like, there's just, really making sure that our why we're doing something is bigger than ourselves. And
Yeah.
when it is bigger than ourselves and outside of our ego and outside of our vanity, then it's easier to stay committed to, thinking about our kids or that one podcast listener that, could be maybe thinking about, taking their lives, and maybe your show is the one that changes that for them. So thinking of something that's outside of ourselves, I think, is so
Yeah.
important. Such a good one to
Yeah.
remember.
Absolutely.
Stay committed that way, right? It's not about us. And so,
Yeah.
Nate, I want to send people to you and to where your stuff is. So where do we want to send people to? Where we can find out more
Yeah.
information about you and connect with you on social media?
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, social media. Coach Nate Bailey on Instagram is a great place to to connect. My website, Nate Bailey Speaks, it has my podcast, has all kinds of resources and information, blog, events, trainings that we have. You can contact me there, as well as if you want a copy of the free audiobook of the 100 Mile Mindset. It is free. There's no cost. Just put your email in there, and that will also bring you into my world, as I do consistently, just like the podcast, communicate with my email list as well at
Okay,
100milemindset.com.
100milemindset.com. So we'll make sure we link that in our show notes. And so, Nate, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. It was great to get to know you and find out so many great tips and tricks of how we can stop being complacent, get motivated, get going, and keep in constant action and achieve some really cool things in our lives. Who knows how long we have on this planet? And like yourself, I've learned that far too many times in my life. And it's just one of those things that's really important to me too. You don't know how long you have, so make the most of it. So thanks, Nate, for being with us today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, Amplify You family, thanks so much. Make sure you check out the show notes, see more about Nate, where to find out more information about him. And until next time, take care, and we'll see you on our next show.